Good evening, everyone. Dante Williams with Community Frontline. Obviously, we all kind of know that the coronavirus and COVID-19 has been going around. So what we've been doing is kind of just talking amongst ourselves about how we can better serve the community during this time. And one of the ways that we came up with is doing a weekly kind of virtual update with different things and different happenings within the community that are impacting us. All of us and some of you directly in terms of tenant rights, policing, mental health, education, and just other city updates that may be coming out that you guys may or may not be aware of. And so tonight what we wanted to do was bring in Caleb Roberts with Texas Housers. He's going to speak to, I guess, housing and tenant rights, and also Deputy Chief Neil Noakes with the Fort Worth Police Department. So first up, we'll have Caleb.
Yeah, thanks, Dante, for that introduction. My name is Caleb Roberts. I work for an organization called Texas Housers. We're a nonprofit working on housing advocacy and community development all over the state of Texas. I'm the director of the Northwest branch of Texas. So that's Fort Worth area, Dallas area, Lubbock, and Amarillo. As you see, Community Frontline shirt, I work with them quite a bit. So I'm very happy that Dante and Ben, you invited me on to really talk about these housing issues. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. Give me 1 second to do that. Okay. All right, so can everybody see that? Just give me a nod. All right, great. So what I'm gonna do today is just give you a brief overview of some of the housing concerns and things that happened during the COVID-19 crisis. I'm not gonna go too in depth just because as an individual, I don't know your specific circumstance. So I don't want to give you conflicting information. What I'm gonna do is give you a general overview of what's happening housing related, and hopefully enough tools that you can ask the right questions on your own for your own situation. So that's kind of what the basis is for this presentation today. So I'll be talking about public, subsidized, and private housing during the COVID-19 crisis. So the first one, the thing that most people are looking at is evictions, because evictions will affect the most people. And affect them the hardest way. Evictions during this time would be unfortunate for anyone. So this is for all housing. So all housing in Texas are, these rules I have up here will be something that affect all Texas homes, private industries. We will get into the public and subsidized housing later on in the presentation. So the first three things is, evictions in Texas are halted until after April 30th. So there will be nobody evicted for non-payment of rent during this time. A landlord may post a notice to vacate though. So if you're familiar, when you get evicted, before you go to court or anything, landlord posts on your door that you have a notice to vacate. Then they have the court, usually about 30 days after that. So you still may get those notices to vacate for non-payment of rent. So beware of that. But the actual eviction process, going to court and getting the court to say that you are now out of your unit, will not happen until after April 30th. So they can do what the writ of possession is. So those processes that lead up to eviction may be going on now. So you may have landlords sending information to the court. All those things can be going on, but the court decision that actually gives you the court deciding that the landlord now can come into your property and move you out, those things won't happen in the state of Texas until after May 7th, okay? Now those things will change based on federal mandates, but this is, if you're in any Texas apartment, this is good information for you to have. This is the baseline for all Texas renters. Okay, so moving on. So rent and late fees are also a major thing that people talk about. There's been a lot of talk I've heard around rent, and I don't care what you've heard, your rent is still due. So even if they're not evicting you for not paying rent until the dates I said, your rent is still due. So in any housing that you live in, please get in your mind that there's no lack of rent getting paid. There's no forgiveness for rent is a better term for that. There's no rent forgiveness. Your rent is still due. If you need rental assistance, the Community Action Partners in Fort Worth, there's a number right there for you to call. You may have to sit through a wait for a little bit of time, but there are some assistance out there, and I put the number there for you. It's called Community Action Partners. Also with late fees. So Texas has not suspended its late fees, so residents will still be at risk of accumulating fees. Now, this is just for private housing if you're not subsidized or federally backed. So be cognizant of that, and you may want to talk to your landlords. I'm sure during this time, landlords, you can talk to them and work out some kind of deal so you can avoid fees, you can avoid all of those things. But Texas has not suspended its late fees. So be cognizant of that, and be willing to talk to your landlord if anything. If you're not sure about something, it's just better to be ahead of it than struggling to get out of late fee debt during a time like this. So the next is public and federally subsidized housing. So this is really controlled by the federal government here. So if the feds give you money, they can pretty much control some of the things that are happening. And that's why you see the difference between what was happening federally with federal money and just the private market here in Texas. So how do you know if you're, subsidized housing? How do you know if your building gets federal money? If you're a Section 8, which is housing choice voucher resident, if you live in a low income housing tax credit property, a USDA rural housing property. And then there's some questions around federally backed mortgages, like FHA loans. If you fall into what the federal mandates are, the best kind of thing I can tell you is to ask questions to your landlord. We're pretty certain that those FH loans do fall under the federal mandates, but just ask a question if you are confused at all about it. So what the federal mandate is saying, and this is with the CARE Act, the same stimulus act that the $1,200 payments are through, they say until July 25th for mortgages, there'll be no foreclosures on federal home loans and forbearance for families experiencing financial hardship. So you'll have to go to the people you lend from. You'll have to go to that site and probably talk to them about the forbearance. But the foreclosures is similar to the break-in evictions. So be sure to ask those questions, and you can find this information on online. I'll give you the website at the end of the PowerPoint here, but if you have those kind of questions and you don't know where your loans come through, it's best to ask. In any of this stuff with COVID-19 related, I would say ask the question and don't be afraid to ask because people are in a panic right now. So and scrambling to get all these things adjusted. So who knows if they're getting the best information out always. So always ask, and you never know what the stipulations may be. So if you're in subsidized housing, so if you're a public housing resident, Section 8 resident, project-based voucher, anything that has to do with HUD, until July 25th, landlords cannot give notices to vacate for non-payment of rent, file eviction cases, or issue late fees. Now that's until July 25th. So you have quite a bit of time there. of grace period that the federal government has presented. But also, I cannot tell you enough that that does not mean rent is not due. Rent is still due. And I'll say that again at some other point. Okay. And the last thing I really want to talk about is utilities. So there's two types of utilities, and I don't want to get too confused here, but either you're under the PUC, which is the Public Utility Commission of Texas, or you get kind of for-profit energy company. So there's two different things, as you can see, that fall under both. So if you're under a public utility, they have stopped water and sewer shutoff for non-payment and halted electrical shutoffs for non-payment. And they give some examples of what those companies or that public utility companies are, if that's what you get your utilities from. But if you are for-profit, if you have a for-profit energy company, they will offer a payment plan to residents who request one. And this is where some really good things are happening, but it's a little confusing about who qualifies. So they are willing to suspend disconnections for residents who have been added to the state's unemployment and low income lists due to the effects of COVID-19. And so if you're already on unemployment, I think you're already on this list. If you're in the HUD, subsidized housing, I believe you're on this list, but it's not a real clear definition of who gets automatically put on and who is not. So I put the number there for the state's low income list administrator. Again, this is probably going to be a little bit of a wait for these things, but please call, request your enrollment if you're having those issues, if you feel like that's something that that applies to you, and if you need the help. Like I said, most of this stuff is just about asking the right questions. So that's a general overview of what I was going to talk about. Frontline, I don't know if you have any questions that you want me to answer while I'm here right now or wait to the end, but that's it for me.
All right, Caleb, I appreciate that, man. A lot of information there. And if you guys have questions or comment, please post them on the down below or kind of in the video. Up next, we got Deputy Chief Neil Noakes with Forward Police Department.
First of all, thank you, Dante and Ben, for having us on here to represent Forward PD. And thank you, Caleb. That was a lot of great information. That's information a lot of people need to hear right now. One of the first things we want people to know is at Forward PD, we understand we're all in this together. We've taken on a role at the direction of our chief in situations where we're dealing with the public. Education comes first. Enforcement is taking a back seat. What we want to do is make sure everyone understands what the requirements are as far as social distancing, essential businesses, non-essential businesses, things like that. We want to inform people. We're not looking to arrest people. One thing I want to make very clear, I've heard rumors that we're setting up checkpoints, that we're pulling people over just to find out if they're supposed to be outside. That is completely false. Trust me, we have enough going on. We don't have the time to do that. And second of all, we don't have the desire to do it. And we have been directed specifically by our chief to not engage in those kind of activities. So we're not out trying to pull people over just to find out if they're violating the order. Now, where situations come up where we may have to address the order are ones where we have large gatherings. And one that we're concerned about, to be quite honest, is Easter coming up this weekend. Easter is huge. It's a huge thing in my family. Always has been. It's always about families getting together, friends getting together. So this year, it's going to be a big change for my family. We're not going to be able to do it. What we're asking is that all the residents of Fort Worth understand that and respect that. We've had some concern from things we've seen on social media about people planning on having big Easter events at parks. Well, the mayor's already made it pretty clear that that's not going to be allowed. And we hope people, and again, this is not a threatening statement I'm making here, it's an informing statement, it's educating. We can't allow people to come out in large groups in parks like that. COVID is making us change the way we're doing a lot of things. Unfortunately, it's falling on, for many of us, the holiest day of the year when we normally would be getting together with people to socialize. Please understand, we know it's an inconvenience. We know it's not something anybody wants to have to deal with, but unfortunately, it's the situation we're in. If anyone has questions about some of these requirements, the City of Fort Worth has actually set up a really good resource online. If you'll go to the City of Fort Worth website, just the standard City of Fort Worth website, all you have to do, Google City of Fort Worth. Once you go on, at the very top, there's a link that says COVID-19 update. If you will click on that, it has a ton of resources. Some will tell you some of the things that the cities had to do as far as the declaration, the emergency declaration. There'll be a lot of information about services. There'll be information on which services have had to be canceled with the city. And it breaks down every single department in the city, from the police department, fire department, code, water department. It breaks down every bit of a trash collection. Any questions you have, it will all be on the City of Fort Worth website on that COVID update. One of the things that we've been talking to some people about recently, Dante and I had this conversation earlier. There seems to be some misinformation going around about how COVID is only affecting certain communities. COVID-19 is affecting all communities. It does not discriminate on the basis of race, gender, religion, national origin. The coronavirus is affecting all of us. So what we're asking is, across the board, everyone, look out for yourselves, look out for your family. And by doing so, we're looking out for the community as a whole. And as rough as this is right now, as inconvenient as it is, especially during holidays, we stick together through this, follow the social distancing guidelines, follow the hand washing guidelines, have your personal protective equipment. If you have masks or gloves, which we know are in short supply, they're a short supply for us as well. If we keep all those things in mind and do our best, I guarantee we come out better and stronger on the other side, but we've got to stick together as we do it. Again, if you have any questions, go to the City of Fort Worth website, click on the COVID-19 update, and most of your questions will be answered there. Any others, send us something and we'll follow up later with some answers to your questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Neil, appreciate that. Thank you for that information and clarifying and clearing up some of those misconceptions about what you guys are doing right now. So with that, guys, we're going to shut it down, man, and really thank y'all for tuning in and listening. Thank Caleb and thank Neil. I'll call him Neil. I was going to say Chief, but Neil for just tuning in with us and sharing that information. A few other things that we have going on for Frontline, if you guys haven't seen or haven't heard. So we're doing the COVID-19 response team, and simply what that is we're a group of guys and Community Frontline and a few other organizations that partner to kind of help assist with whether it be groceries or medicine deliveries or cutting the yard. There's some utility assistance in there and maybe even some rental assistance. But just to help out during these times with a lot of things that's going on. There's a lot of people losing jobs, a lot of people that are just impacted, whether you're actually catching the virus or not, just as a means of disrupting life that's happening. So that's something that we're doing. We're also doing the East Fort Worth business support. So just different businesses and restaurants on the east side. We'll send out a flyer and kind of let you guys know what those businesses are, as well as I think we're going to start sponsoring on Fridays from a location to provide some food. So we'll keep you guys posted with that if anyone wants to join in and helping with that. Other than that, we appreciate it. Thank you guys again. We're looking out if you guys have anything that that you would like to be discussed on these weekly updates, or just comments or questions or assistance or resources we may be able to provide. Let us know in the comments or just message us. Again, thank you guys.